Characters are one of the most important aspects of professional wrestling. You need to build a character in order to be successful in the business. Some people have created spooky and terrifying gimmicks to stand out from the rest. These creepy characters have given children nightmares, which means they were absolutely spot on with their performance. Well, in today's Halloween themed video, I decided it would be fun to take my favorite spooky and terrifying wrestlers and rank them from the worst to the best. In order to qualify, these are superstars that I either watched live on TV, on DVDs, or old VHS tapes that I used to borrow from the library. Those VHS tapes are the only reason why I was able to watch the Monday Night Wars, even though it was in 2003 and they're already over by then, but you still get the point. Basically, I don't want to include people like Abdullah the Butcher, Kevin Sullivan, or Killer Kowalski in this because I personally did not watch them. They were in action during the 70s and 80s, and I'm 21 years old. There's no way I can rank them, even though all three of those men were actually really crazy. Abdullah the Butcher would bleed in every match and also use forks on his opponents. Kevin Sullivan was a satanic cult leader and was the definition of evil and psychotic. And Killer Kowalski actually ripped off another wrestler's ear and laughed at him in the hospital. I wish I was able to watch their work, but unfortunately I was not. Today we're looking at some people who terrified me. Many of you probably don't know this, but I'm a horror junkie and Halloween is actually my favorite holiday. The costumes, the candy, and the scares is what I live for. Anyways, let's jump right into the video and see my rankings for the most terrifying and spooky wrestlers of my time. Number 14, Doink the Clown. A clown plus a heel is a recipe for spooky and creepy. Doink the Clown was someone who liked to torture his opponents in the ring and also scare the fans in the meantime. If you go back and watch some of his promos, you can't even tell if he's playing a character or not. He kind of reminded me of Pennywise the Clown from It. I would have ranked him higher if I was scared of clowns, but I'm not really terrified of them. I find them creepy and all, but I'm not the type of person to have that clown phobia where they're completely scared of any clown they see. One thing that was extremely spooky was his horrifying laugh. Every clown that has that devious laugh gives me a bad feeling. His theme song is also pretty scary with his laughter going on at the same time. It's just pretty spooky overall. Number 13, the Demon Finn Balor. I am prepared to get some heat because Finn Balor's demon character may not be that terrifying or spooky, but if you take a look at his face and body paint, it's pretty weird. Also, he's literally portraying a demon character. A demon. When he enters this demon persona, he's very hard to beat because that's how strong this demon is. Who knows what crazy thoughts are going on through his mind when he is the demon. Is this not spooky to anyone else? Of course, since it's 2019, I guess people find it less scary, but if I was a kid, he'd definitely be higher on the ranking list. Number 12, SYCHO Sid. I've been watching some episodes of Monday Night Raw in 1996 and 1997 because I'm actually trying to watch all the episodes of Raw and SmackDown for some reason. I think it's going to be pretty cool. Anyways, that's beside the point. While watching these Raws, I've been seeing more and more of SYCHO Sid's work, and now I can see why people thought he was pretty scary. First, his theme song was actually like terrifying, like listening to it sounds like a serial killer is about to murder your ass. And his mannerisms and emotions went great with the song. He either had a super straight and serious face, or he was losing his mind and yelling at the fans. Then I saw his size compared to Shawn Michaels and the other wrestlers, and he just looked like a monster. Let's not forget about his finisher as well, when he would hit you with a powerbomb, and it's a lot scarier when you see someone doing it who is 7 feet tall because they're 7 feet in the air, and the impact looks a lot more dangerous from that height. He did a great job at selling his psycho character. Number 11, Paul Bearer. Yes, I'm aware that Paul Bearer was not an active wrestler inside the squared circle, but he still earns a spot on my video. Paul Bearer did a great job at selling his character and telling the stories of The Undertaker, Mankind, and Kane. Without him, I'm not sure how great those other guys would have been with their careers. Like, obviously they would have been successful, but just take a look at how much Paul Bearer helped them. Also, Paul looked very, very creepy with his pale face paint and his dark circles. He kind of reminded me of a ghost, and I find ghosts to be very horrifying because just think about someone being there at all times and trying to scare you. Come on, that's a scary thought. Along with that, his high-pitched voice truly made him stand out and always sounded eerie. I always questioned why he talked like that, and it made me wonder what happened to him in the past that caused this to happen. Let's also not forget about the fact that he had power from his urn. That's a pretty iconic piece in wrestling history. He always exceeded in the roles he was given. Number 10, Papa Shango. Papa Shango was around for the early 90s when wrestlers had the over-the-top characters, and there was almost no character better than this. Papa Shango was into voodoo and magic, which caused for some awesome chaos. He would literally set people on fire with the power he had. He would also have an entire room backstage with candles and skulls where he would set curses on the WWF and wrestlers within the company. You did not want to mess with Papa Shango around this time. He wore face paint to represent a skeleton demon along with a spooky hat and a necklace made out of bones. How much more creepy can it get? In his greatest voodoo moment, he would cast a spell on Ultimate Warrior that would cause him to vomit and cause a thick black liquid to pour from his head. Of course, a young Valen watching this thought this was real, and I didn't even want him to be back on TV ever again because I thought he would kill all my favorite wrestlers. Number 9, Abyss. If you didn't know who Abyss is, you truly missed out on one of the scariest wrestlers of all time. In 2004, I will never forget about my discovery of TNA. I was flipping through channels and I happened to land on a new wrestling channel with a 6-sided ring. I was so excited because this was something new and interesting. Then I took a look at Abyss and I was so scared that I literally turned the TV off until his match was over. 6-year-old Valen was not having it with this creepy looking dude. Just so you know, I used to be very scared of everything on TV, especially the Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street movies. So since Abyss reminded me of them, I was actually really frightened. I think he deserves to be on my ranking list because his gimmick was a wrestler who was actually insane from a psychiatric hospital. This is why his matches were all very hardcore and he would bleed a lot or end up in a pile of thumbtacks. The man was straight up crazy and he enjoyed it. Even in the 2010s, Abyss started to develop a split personality. He would be Joseph Parker and Abyss. This made him even creepier and added more character depth to him. Number 8, The Fiend. Bray Wyatt's new character definitely deserves a spot on this list. There are two different versions of this character that go hand in hand with each other. You have Bray Wyatt, who is always at the Firefly Funhouse playing with the puppets in front of a crowd of children, and then you have the horrifying Fiend. I don't know which is scarier because one of them is messing around with little kids and the other one is just a psychopath. The Fiend has one of the best gimmicks in the business right now, and he is definitely one of the spookiest of all time. When he attacks his opponents, the lights slowly go off, and there is also a scary screech sound effect, and then he proceeds to choke his opponents with the mandible claw until they pass out. This isn't even the scariest part of it all. He comes down to the ring with a lamp of his old character's severed head. That is just straight up crazy. The Fiend wears a creepy mask as well, and he also cracks the neck of his opponents, which is literally attempted murder. He gets away with it though because he's the Fiend. Bray Wyatt has been doing a wonderful job with the Fiend character, and I can't wait to see what happens next after the entire Rollins feud is finally over. Number 7, the Boogeyman. The Boogeyman's catchphrase was, "I'm the Boogeyman and I'm coming to get you." You can only imagine that an 8-year-old kid would be absolutely terrified of this, right? Nope, this is actually around the time when I started to love horror stuff, and I even mimicked the Boogeyman's entrance once. I took a clock in my room and literally said its catchphrase, and I smashed the clock on my head. Looking back at it, I was probably the dumbest kid ever, and I started to cry because I thought I was gonna die. But somehow I made it out without a scratch. It was pretty impressive. Anyways, back to the Boogeyman, his entrance and face paint was the definition of spooky. The only thing I found creepy was the fact that he ate worms, and he also made his opponents eat the worms. That was pretty nasty and still gives me chills. I always wondered if it was fake or real, and I'm pretty sure it was real, which means that's really gross. Number 6, Gangrel. Gangrel had one of the coolest entrances ever, with the red lighting, his bright fangs, creepy music, and ascending to the stage among the fire. I think it might have been one of the best during the Attitude Era. He would also walk down to the ring with a cup of blood and spit it into the air. That was pretty awesome though. Gangrel's gothic character was one of the spookiest things in wrestling history. Gangrel even formed his faction known as the Brood with Edge and Christian. They were the perfect trio that would cause havoc in the WWE. Gangrel even gave his opponents bloodbaths. Overall, he deserves a high spot on this list. Number 5, Sting. At Clash of Champions in 1997, Sting made his amazing debut on the rafters of the arena with a single crow on his hand and a monologue from a little kid explaining that he was Sting and what exactly he was all about. It was a perfect debut, and he would become one of the greatest superstars of all time. Although he was a face and took out the NWO, he was one hell of a badass that everyone liked. He was also able to maintain his mystique character and didn't talk too much. The man would just come out and start swinging his bat, taking out opponents. Like I said earlier, it was pretty badass, and I can see why people tuned into WCW during the Monday Night War. It was a shame it took him so long to come to WWE, because I think he would have been a superstar for at least a decade, and we would have gotten that iconic match with The Undertaker. Number 4, Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake Roberts had two main factors that made him pretty terrifying. First, there's the fact that he would come down to the ring with a freaking snake. Remember how I said I didn't have a phobia of clowns? Well, if I see a snake, I might just faint and probably die right there to the snake, because that's how scary I find them. So imagine being in the first row with a deranged man holding a snake. He would even use the snake as a weapon and have them bite his opponents. Although that's a pretty awesome move now, looking back, it showed why you shouldn't have messed with him. I'll never forget watching Macho Man Randy Savage tied against the ropes and having a snake bite his arm. I legit thought the man was going to die. Then I realized it was a DVD and he was still alive when I saw him in Spider-Man. That's beside the point. That was just cruel to watch. Aside from that moment, he would also lock Ultimate Warrior in a room with poisonous snakes, which was Warrior's greatest fear. Jake Roberts was amazing at finding what his opponent's greatest fears were and then trying to kill them with that knowledge. If that ain't scary, I don't know what is. Number 3, Mankind. Many people remember Mankind from the Attitude Era and his entire tag team run with The Rock. But before that, Mankind made his debut in 1996 and would terrorize the WWE roster for the next year as a deranged, insane person who would inflict pain on himself. Seriously, Mankind was highly underrated. He would literally rip out his hair, stab himself with a pen, and take the craziest bumps. Aligning with Paul Bearer and attacking Undertaker made him even scarier because of the power within that urn. Also, if you haven't already, please watch his segments with Jim Ross. He would explain his character's origin, and Mankind would come across as one of the most sadistic human beings of all time. He just seemed utterly broken. It's up there on my favorite segments of all time. Mankind would also go on to absolutely beat up JR after he made him upset in the interview. After choking him out with the mandible claw, JR was practically dying and choking, and that's when Mankind was screaming for help afterwards as if he didn't know what just happened. That was perfect. It was peak storytelling, and I wish we had that nowadays. Number 2, Undertaker. Upon making his debut, Undertaker was born to be an evil and scary wrestler. Throughout his entire career, he was terrifying. However, during the Attitude Era, Undertaker was a pure crazy man who did some of the worst things known to mankind, and no pun intended to number 3, who was Mankind. Let me name some of the things he did. He sacrificed Dennis Knight, chokeslammed Edge through the ring and lit him on fire, sacrificed Stone Cold Steve Austin, crashed Randy Savage's wedding, attacked David Flair, locked up the Ultimate Warrior in a casket, kidnapped Stephanie McMahon and then sacrificing her, hung Big Boss Man, drowned Paul Bearer in concrete, dragged Hulk Hogan on a motorcycle, formed the Ministry of Darkness, and nearly killed Mankind in the Hell in a Cell match. As you can see, I don't even need to talk about The Undertaker anymore. He is just on another level of terrifying. But he wasn't my number 1 on my list because that goes to number 1, Kane. Personally, Kane has been the most frightening wrestler of all time to me. Just take a look at his original attire along with the fire in his entrance. Also, he has an intense backstory with his brother thinking that he died in a fire. Even when he took the mask off, he had burns all over his face and the cops had to escort him to the ring with chains. That's some hardcore horror stuff right there. They did drop the ball on him, but it was still cool for the time being. Let's also not forget about him killing his brother 2 times and electrocuting Shane McMahon's balls. I vividly remember a dream where I attended a live show on Raw and Kane was chasing me in the arena trying to kill me. That's how scared I was of this man. He gave me nightmares. He deserves my #1 spot. And that is it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Pllana, and I'll see you all on the next video.
And I got this soul